All right, so you've added your functions, subtracted your functions, and multiplied your functions. The only thing that's left is to divide your functions. So you're going to do f divided by g. So this is a little tricky, but I'm going to show you an example with my functions. So again, my functions were x minus 4 and 2x plus 2. And I'm going to divide them. So I'm going to do f divided by g. Let me make that a little bit bigger. Okay. Which I'm just going to put my f of x on top, x minus 4, over my g of x, which is 2x plus 2. This isn't, this is probably as simple as I'm going to make it. And again, I'm going to make a table of values in order to graph this. So I'm going to take my table of values, input, output, try some negative values just so you can have a variety. Here's your input, which is your x, output, which is your y. So let's do -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and graph this. I'm going to try -3 first. So when my x equals -3, let me make this smaller. You notice that f over g becomes -3 minus 4. Oops. -3 minus 4 over 2 times -3 plus 2. Right, I'm just plugging in -3 whenever I see an x because that's my x that I am using. Simplify this. -3 minus 4 on top is -7. And -3 times 2 is -6. -6 plus 2. Simplify this a little bit more and I get -7 over -4, which simplifies to +7 over 4 because the negatives cancel each other out. So for here, my point is 7/4. I can keep doing this so I can make a table of values and eventually graph this whole function. Again, I want you to graph this by hand. I do not want you to use Desmos, but I do want to show you what this looks like quickly. It's x minus 4 over 2x plus 2. And there is again a vertical asymptote. This is something when I plug in a value of -1/2 for x. So remember from our function investigation, if I put in a value of so if I do x equals -1/2, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get -1/2 minus 4 divided by 2 times -1/2 plus 2. And what happens to the bottom, the denominator, is, I don't know why this is not increasing in size. There we go. Is, if you notice, the top, I'll just leave it for now in the interest of time, is -1/2 minus 4. The bottom becomes 2 times -1/2 is oh, I'm sorry. It should be 2 times, not -1/2. -1 is actually, if I plug in -1, I'm so sorry. Let me fix that. So we're going to plug in x equals -1. So this becomes -1. This becomes -1. Okay. So we have -1 minus 4, which is -5. And on the bottom, we get a -2 plus 2, which leads to -5 over 0. So remember from the last part of this challenge, the function investigation, you cannot divide by 0 because anything multiplied by 0 is 0. You can't get -5 if you multiply anything by 0. There's nothing. So at -1, we have an undefined, and we have that vertical asymptote that we learned about. So, you know, go ahead, do the same thing I did, but with your functions. Divide f divided by g. Do a table of values if you need to, graph this function, and then go ahead and answer the following question, which is, what are some similarities and differences that you notice between f divided by g of x and the original functions f and g? Explain why you think this is happening. Write it all out in your notebook. And then when you're finished, go ahead and upload your work on DreamStudio. So same thing, right? Divide the two functions, graph them. Don't use Desmos though. Don't use Desmos though. Do graph by hand, and then answer this question.